Hello, how are you? You good? I'm good. So, my name is Mario, and for those of you who don't know me, I like to come online and chat with you guys about ways to fight with depression and anxiety. Today, I had a particularly good day, but here's the kicker: I also had anxiety, and I don't get anxiety every day. So, when anxiety tries to attack, it's normally supposed to make the day bad. But what happened was I was able to catch the anxiety trying to get to me, and I was able to counter it with the fact that everything in the day that I'm having now, we're still in the same day throughout this message. I'm actually in the night of the same day. Anyway, forget all that jibber jabber. The point is that the attack was very small and it failed miserably because I was able to scan my environment, realize how good my conditions were of the day, and lose my reason to have any anxiety. And it gave me an idea for what we're going to be talking about this episode. Because what I did involved a lot of being in the present. When you scan your environment, when you understand your present situation, you leave the past and you don't worry about the future, and thus you're in the only time frame that you can possibly be, which is the present. That's how it works. That's logic, right? And it gave me this idea that we should talk about active listening. So, what is that? What do I mean when I say active listening? Well, I'll tell you. Active listening is when you are listening to what a person says in every way beyond words. That means that active listening is not a thing of the ear. A deaf person can do active listening. You know what I mean? It's well, it's a hell of a lot easier when you're not. But the point is, active listening is a very powerful psychological skill. And what you do when you actively listen is that you you end up in the present as a side effect. And being in the present is a natural way to fight depression and anxiety, which is what gave me the idea to mention it on this show. Now let's create a scenario here. Let's say you're having a conversation with friends and you think of something that you want to say really eagerly because it will be a really good point, but you're waiting for another guy to finish talking and he's going on and on and on. He's just not putting a cap on it. But you don't want to be rude, you don't want to cut him off. So you wait and you wait. But here's the thing, you're not listening to what he says because what the only thing that's running through your head is how eagerly you want to jump in and say your thing. When you do that, that's the opposite of active listening. Now, I'm not gonna trash anybody for doing it because it's so normal, it's so common. We all do it. It's a nasty little habit, but it's a very common habit. But once you learn how active listening works, blah, blah, jibber jabber, more, you can practice it, and eventually, just be you'd be ridding yourself of one less habit. And there are ways to sort of catch on to the ability to actively listen to a person, to just really listen. For example, there are tests out there, riddles, where as the riddle is being said by a person, the answer to the riddle is in the riddle. And when they tell you that and you don't know the answer, the only way you cannot know the answer is if you were not actively listening. So actively listening is a thing and it's tested for. You know what I mean? So it just shows just how valuable the skill is once it can be tested in such a way. Another habit that causes inactive listening, the opposite, is when you're thinking too much about how your day went or worried about how your day is going to go and you're not really listening to what a person says. You know what I mean? You want to avoid that. And there are ways to do it. For example, when people talk to you, pretend like you have to, like, let's say you pretty much have a gun to your head and you have to do this, where you have to repeat every word the other person just said while they were speaking to you. You know what I mean? Take that approach when people talk to you. That way, you have no choice but to be actively listening because you have to repeat every word. You know what I mean? Another thing you can do, these are my two tricks I'm telling you. And the second one is to pause after they are done talking. Even if you're pausing long enough that somebody might cut you off, don't worry about that. Don't think about that. Okay? Just pause for a little bit. Think about what they said. Think about what you want to say, then go. Okay? You can take your time and apply what you want to say and do it much better after you've actively listened. You know what I mean? So that's what you do. Pretend like you have to repeat everything the person is trying to tell you. And two, don't be in such a hurry to respond. Because if you respond that fast, then it's as though you weren't listening. You know what I mean? And actively listening is powerful beyond words because once you actively listen, you're not just listening to words anymore. Actively listening lets you pick up on facial expression, body language. You start to understand not just the words that a person is telling you, but why he's choosing those words, how he's saying them, what he looks like while he says them, what's his posture. Once you actively listen, you master being able to understand what the person is saying regardless of what words he used. So you understand the feeling behind a statement and not just the statement. You can even catch things that either were or weren't there when you actively listen to somebody that says something and say they made a mistake while they were saying it. And if you actively listen, if you can catch them and say, well, that contradicts your former statement or something, like they do in court. In court, active listening is the biggest skill that's happening. You know what I mean? It's trained to a degree where people are paid well specifically to actively listen. And yeah, that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. So see if you can do that and let go of the bias feedback that's running in your head while listening to another person's statement. That's what I like to call it, bias feedback. Whether you're trying to jump in and say your thing or you're thinking about your day too much. Practice the ability to just let that go, stay in the present, pretend you have to repeat everything, pause when you talk. You're not in a hurry. You shouldn't have to be. And if they cut you off because you took your time, that's more of their problem than it is yours. You know what I mean? Who cares who's being rude? Doesn't matter. Just actively listen. Anyway, if you liked our little talk and what this episode was about, you can go ahead and pop me that thumbs up. You can subscribe even if you want. It's up to you. I do this for you guys. And give me some feedback and talk to me in the comments. Now, I believe my comments might be shut off. I don't know how YouTube works, and I'm still learning and their way of thinking. It's like the opposite of my own, so I have to work with these people, but I will. Anyway,